from the Student Job Center. I'm going to do a little presentation on interview prep. So we'll get started here. So what we're going to cover in this workshop: preparing for your interview, dressing for success at the interview, and some common interview questions. Preparing for your interview. A few things you want to make sure that you understand before you go. Obviously, you want to make sure that you know the company. So it's always a good practice to visit the company website, read articles about the company literature, newsletters, etc. You want to know yourself. So, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is obviously not doing the preparation in advance and just going into an interview with a sense of almost winging it. And that's probably the last thing that you want to do when you're going into an interview. So by knowing yourself, you want to obviously know what experiences that you have, the knowledge and skills the employers are looking for, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. So you're clearly not going to always know the interview questions in advance, but it is very important that you obviously take the time to prep. You want to know about the job. So researching the position, what will you be doing, who does the job report to, and how much the job will pay. Dressing for success. So you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you obviously want to dress appropriately for your interview. Clothes should be clean, ironed in style. For guys, usually dress pants, dress shirt, and a tie. For ladies, usually dress pants, a skirt with a blouse or a pantsuit. For labor positions, your dress can be a little bit more casual, but you still want to obviously make sure that your clothes are ironed and you look clean and presentable. And for higher level professional positions, obviously a full suit and tie generally would be expected in that type of scenario. At the interview, so you want to make sure that you know where you're going. So you want to do a dry run if you're not sure. You do want to arrive early. 10 to 15 minutes is plenty. You don't want to make the mistake of reporting to an interview too early. And the reason for that is the company may not be ready to see you. And if you show up too early for your interview, often they're going to feel the pressure to accommodate you sooner than later. So again, arriving 10 to 15 minutes early for your interview is generally plenty of time for that. And obviously don't have anyone waiting for you, and you don't want to set appointments before or after just because you never really know how long your interview is going to take. What to bring with you. So you want to make sure that you have copies of your resume, at least 3 copies. Generally, an interview is going to be a panel style, so there's usually more than one person that will be handling the interview. So you do want to make sure you bring extra copies, portfolio, certificates, and your references. What not to bring. So obviously you don't want to show up with coffee, soft drinks, cell phone, having gum, MP3, iPod, tablet, anything that essentially could be a distraction. It is okay, however, to bring a bottle of water with you. Obviously, in an interview setting, having that a little bit of nerves, you may get thirsty throughout the process. So again, having a bottle of water with you is fine. At the interview, again, you want to make sure you remember to smile when greeting your interviewers. A smile goes a long way. Be kind and courteous to everyone you meet prior to your interview. They may be asked how they were treated when you arrive. So again, from the moment you step into that office building, you want to make sure that you're being kind and pleasant to everyone that you come in contact with. So just to go over some common interview questions. So some of the standard ones: tell me about yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses? How would your colleagues or supervisors describe you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tell me about a time you had to deal with change, disappointment, and stress. Tell me about a time when you had to work under pressure to meet a deadline. Tell me about a time when you worked as part of a team and how you contributed to this team's success. How do you keep yourself organized at work? What are your salary expectations? Why did you leave your last job? Why should we hire you? And why do you want to work here? So again, these are just some of the standard ones. To go into each question with a little bit more detail. So if you get the question, tell me about yourself. Again, this is something 60 seconds or less. You want to make sure that you're drawing on your education and work experience. You can throw some personal or personality into this, but just know that the interviewer doesn't necessarily want to know that you have 2 dogs, 3 cats, or anything like that. So you do want to keep the information on topic, and you want to obviously relate your response to this back to the position that you're interviewing for. What are your strengths and weaknesses? So again, know your strengths and weaknesses ahead of time. Start with weaknesses if possible, and if you can, choose minor weaknesses that will not be a major turnoff to an employer. So examples of weaknesses, if you're afraid of public speaking, being shy, math skills or computer skills. Again, it can be a past or a present weakness, but you always want to make sure that you're getting the employer to focus on the things that you've done to improve in that area. So your weakness response should always kind of tie into how you're taking the steps or what steps you are taking to improve in that area. Strengths, again, choose strengths that you know the employer is looking for. So if you're looking at a job posting, often they might highlight some of those strengths or characteristics that they'd look for in a candidate. So you want to try and focus your response and mention some of those key points in your answer. Some good strengths include punctuality, reliability, being responsible, organization, and time management. How would your colleagues or supervisors describe you? Again, here you can discuss personality, work ethic, and reliability. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? So in this question, they're looking for ambition, willingness to learn and advance. Are you looking to stay with one company or springboard? Behavioral style interview questions, again, are very popular and very common in an interview setting. So generally they start with, tell me about a time when you had to deal with change, disappointment, had to work under stress, deadlines, had to deal with a difficult customer, experienced conflict in the workplace, and worked as part of a team. So you want to be sure that your answer includes what the situation was. So you're going to make sure that you tell them the story. How did you handle that situation, and what was the outcome? You do want to choose experiences that ended well if possible. However, sometimes your example might be strong enough where you could still use an example that didn't necessarily end well. But if you go this route, it's very important that you let the employer know that if you were to come across this situation, what would you do differently this time to get a more positive outcome? So, answering a question using an example that didn't necessarily end well, this could show that you take ownership and accountability for your actions. People do make mistakes. The first time you go through something, it might not always be the right way, but again, as long as you're letting that employer know that if the situation occurred again, these are the steps I would take, and this is what I would do different. How do you keep yourself organized at work? So again, you're going to talk about time management tools and prioritization. What are your salary expectations? Again, if they do ask this, obviously you should be familiar with, or at least have done some research on what the salary range is for that particular position that you're applying to. You don't want to be the one to bring up questions about salary. Let the employer do that, and just know that at this stage in the process, the job isn't yours yet. So worrying about negotiating salary, this isn't the right time to do that during your first interview. There's always a later date where this information can get ironed out. Why did you leave your last job? So again, be honest, don't speak negatively about past employers. Why should we hire you? So how it will be a benefit to the employer. You have the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they're looking for. Why do you want to work here? Again, they want to see what your goals are, ambitions. Are they aligned with the company? And they want to know that they're the employer of choice. Some questions that you don't have to answer during an interview. So basically anything that revolves around race, age, religion, marital status, children, if you're pregnant, disability, sexual orientation. None of these relate to your ability to do the job that you're interviewing for, which is why these questions are actually illegal for employers to ask that. So if you ever get caught in a situation where you're getting questions that revolve around this, you can politely decline to answer that particular question. Some questions for employers. So again, this is a very important piece to make sure that you do have some questions that you want to ask the employers at the end of the interview. It obviously shows that you're interested in the role and you're looking to find out a little bit more about the role. So again, you do definitely want to be prepared to ask, I'd say even 3 to 5 questions at the end of an interview would be sufficient for something like this. So, but you do want to focus more your questions around the company itself, the job itself, when they expect to make a hiring decision. And again, as I mentioned before, don't ask about salary or benefits. These can be negotiated at a later date. So where you can go for more advice about interviews, obviously, you can visit us in the Student Job Center. Obviously, with the COVID pandemic going on right now, the school is closed, but you can reach out via email to get in touch with us, and we could provide that virtual support for you. So the information's displayed here on this page. And again, I want to thank you guys for joining in today. Just remember to stay safe, and we hope to be back at the college soon. Thank you very much.